Are you ready? Ready to bring a revolution to your relationships? Ready for the experiences on your dating adventure to evolve? Ready for more passion, intimacy, connection, and love in your relationship? Ready to heal past relationship wounds? You're in the right place. I'm Alan, the love engineer, and this is the Relationship Revolutions podcast. In this series, you'll get guidance and tips from me, interviews from other relationship experts, insights from couples who already have a great relationship, and other mind-opening conversations.
Hey, and welcome to the latest episode of Relationship Revolutions, where this week I am joined by Kristine Uniqueness. First two questions, Kristine. How are you and where are you?
I am doing amazing, and I am in the United States in the Northwest region where it's very dry and there aren't a lot of trees, but there's beautiful desert plains and there's a lot of biodiversity where I'm living. So I'm learning to love the space I'm in.
Excellent. So, shall we address the elephant in the room first off? Unique McPeak. Oh, you've even got a little elephant as well. Fantastic.
I do.
How did you come by the name of?
I spent a lot of my life trying to fit in and be like everybody else. And I joined a Zoom podcast group right when the pandemic started and we were all shut in, and I was living alone, and I showed up to these Zoom. It was through EFT. Emma Starling in the UK. I was hosting a private container. And I remember one day thinking, man, I smell pretty ripe. I brushed my teeth that day, but I was like, I'm just going to show up as I am. And I showed up on an exercise ball and I bounced around and I probably used props. And one of the gals over 2 or 3 weeks later said, wow, you're really unique. It rhymes with McPeak. And so she started calling me Unique McPeak. And I remember thinking, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. And it took me a while to claim it, right? So now I claim it. Now we're all unique. We're all beautiful creatures on this planet. We're all made of the same energy and we all matter. And so I don't think I'm any better than anyone else, but I'm definitely me. And there's no other Kristine Unique Peaks out there that I know of.
I've certainly never met another one.
Well, if you do, let me know.
I will certainly make the introduction. So what is it that you do these days?
Yeah, great question. So I've had a business. I had a brick and mortar business. I started it, 12 years ago. I was practicing healing touch, which is an energy technique that nurses can earn continuing education units for, so they keep their licensure. You have to have a medical degree to take the courses. And I almost went on to teach it. I went on through level 4. I had a 2-year physical therapy assistant degree, which was a prerequisite for the course. And so I was helping people one-on-one in person. And then I learned about emotional freedom technique, and I learned that, and oh my gosh, I needed that for myself personally. So I thought, wow, this really works. And I went on to study it, and then I started to migrate that into my practice with my clients. And people were loving the combination of the two things. And then COVID hit. And so my brick and mortar office shut the door, and I did a lot of my own deep diving shadow work during that time, during the pandemic. It was the best and the worst of time for me. I went into my own cave, if you will, and faced the things that we're afraid of, like monsters and, and our memories. And I used the tools I'd already learned. And then when I came outside of that time period, I did some more studies, and I've been integrating those into my own unique style of working with people on a somatic level, on a energetic level. I teach clients how to do the EFT tapping. And there are several different ways that you can use that. And so I primarily work with women who have unresolved emotions, especially anger, because I was one of those angry women.
You find that hard to believe, talking to you today?
Well, shift happens. Thank you. With
It
effort.
certainly does.
You put the big F in the middle of shift. If you take it out, you get, a pile of, and transformation does take effort. And there are 2 Fs. And effort. So I like to put the fun in the
Beautiful. Would it be fair to say this transformation brick and mortar business that you had up until COVID, was that your chosen career path from school?
In a roundabout way, yes, and in a straight line way, no. my mom said, "Pa, you'd be really good as a teacher. You're good with kids." And I went to school and I earned a 4-year degree in elementary education. And the same week that my father passed away, I had final exams. And then I went on to do my student teaching and I earned my degree in the early 90s. I'd never landed a classroom. My last day of substitute teaching, I had a student steal my credit card out of my purse. I said, "Yeah, I don't know if this is for me." I'm grateful that I didn't land a job in the public school system because I think it would have squelched out that creativity, that creative side of me. Now I've always been teaching. I taught downhill skiing when I was 17 and 18 years of age, 16 years actually. Right after I got my driver's license, I drove to my first official job outside of working for my dad, teaching Saturday ski school. And I had an 80-year-old lady join on the Monday night adult class. And I also had a probably 40-year-old man in the same first class when I branched out to teach adults, right? I went from being a 17-year-old focused on working with kids and then working with adults. Now the 80-year-old said, "I always want to learn how to do this." And I thought, "It's never too late," she said. I thought, wow, like that really stuck with me. And the gentleman didn't want to stay and listen to the lesson. And he kind of scooted down the hill after we'd talked about how to walk on this. I gave basic skills. And I'm like, "Remember how to stop, do your snow plow," as he's going down the hill. And I've got 9 other students that are standing and waiting for me to give instructions. So that was a challenging time for my educational experience. So I was able to think very quickly on my feet, even as a teenager on skis. And I've been teaching many things since then. I took a course in laughter leadership. You can totally pretend your smile, pretend your laughter, and your brain recognizes if you have a frown on your face or a smile on your face. So yes, I did go on to work in the education arena, but not in the setting that I thought I would 40 years ago or 35 years ago.
It just goes to show how much we change as we get older, but also how much of an influence our parents have on us when we're young. Because that
Absolutely.
comment here and there has a massive impact, doesn't it?
And I'm grateful that she said that because I do love kids. I haven't had children of my own, so I'm everybody's aunt, like kids love me, kids of all ages. And I actually nurture that inner child to come out and be playful in each of us. And when I work with clients, if we're showing temper tantrums and we're pointing our finger at somebody and we're having or we're just putting our foot down and no, this is the way it's got to be. There's some inner child programming pattern wounds that we can bring to the surface. And I have all kinds of amazing tools that I also teach clients they can use on their own. They don't have to be like, "Oh God, I got to get in with Kristine. I'm freaking out today." No, they can use some of these tools, breathing tools. One of the first tools I have students work with now is coming right to their collarbones. And there's a spot right here where you can just put your hand and you can rub your other hand. So, basically putting your hands right at your collarbones and just breathing. And so what I teach are tools that people who may never become a client, but they've just watched my videos, they're in a private container that I host. They're learning tools that we aren't taught in school. I started hashtag tools absent in school. They're just now starting to teach kids how to regulate emotions. And I've been learning how to do that my entire life because I had a temper. Back in May, I taught my first 4-day workshop, Emotional Intelligence 101, Navigating Unresolved Anger. And I have some stories about when I pointed my finger angrily at someone like it was their fault. And I realized, oh my gosh, fingers are pointing back at me. And I made friends with my anger and recognized that that's an emotion that can be helpful to notice when something else is deeper beneath the surface going on.
Yeah, because a lot of people grow up with this belief that anger, rage, frustration, all these say negative emotions are bad. But from what I've learned through my adventure through life, it's not that they're good or bad. They're just kind of like a warning signal to say, there's something not quite right over here. This area of life needs some attention, or you might want to get away from this person or situation.
Yes. And anger definitely. So if you picture an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg that's above the surface is anger, right? When we experience that anger. And usually we don't go from everything's calm and cool and collected to rage, like that. Sometimes we can. But most of the time we get a little irritated, we get a little annoyed. So if we start to notice when we're complaining a lot, what's beneath the surface? Is it grief that's unresolved? Are you hungry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Let's come to some basic physical need. Is there a boundary that's being pressed? And so a lot of times, so in the zebras, when they get angry, when their mind says, hey, don't touch my baby, the zebra will get strong in the jaw. Now, when's the last time have you ever had to like clench your jaw? Don't say that. Or don't, you almost bite your tongue because that if you say something out of anger, your logical mind says, don't say that to your boss. In fact, I had a coworker 10 days ago tell me to shut the F up. And I was pretty calm and I said, why? First thing, good morning. And like this person had a big chip on their shoulder towards me and towards other people. And my logical mind I didn't have a thought that made that dangerous where I had to bite back. So our emotions, the word motion is right in emotion. And we're oftentimes afraid to feel them. They come from, in my belief, through my studies with rapid resolution therapy and through my experience, our emotions come from a thought. Then maybe it's a thought we don't know we're having, a subconscious thought beneath the surface, right? Beneath that iceberg. And the thought can cause then the brain and the physiology to react in a way that is calm and peaceful. That's why meditation is so wonderful, and guided visualization, and even calming yourself through breath, so that if you have a thought that isn't something you'd share with a little boy or a little girl, hey, you're ugly, put on some, don't go online today, you're not looking very pretty, thoughts like that aren't helpful or useful, and probably not even true, but our body doesn't know that. A brain and a body think it's a threat, and so we get tense and stress, and the physiology in our body changes from our thoughts and from the emotion. And if we continue to have thoughts that feed into that emotion, now we got a mood. Now we're sad. Now we label ourselves as anxious. We label ourselves as that's just the way I am. And we can shift these things. In fact, friends and I are there's a complaint-free world challenge that I learned about 20 years ago, probably, or at least 10 years ago, and they're challenging you to try and go 21 days without complaining. Now, the brain hears complaining. That's why I bought my little elephant. There's a book out there, Don't Think About Purple Elephant, right? The brain hears, think about purple elephant. And if I say, let's focus on kindness and compassion and forgiveness and patience, my brain hears more of that instead of quit saying things that you don't want to say more of about other drivers or about the weather or about your coworkers who can be hostile and have profanity towards you, or about a boss who avoid dealing with it directly. So tricking the brain, I call them brain hacks, really. And we're all capable of doing this. I've had students and friends with children on the very high end of an autistic spectrum be able to learn these tools. I have a friend who's 4-year-old, they didn't think he was even going to live, and they didn't know if he was going to walk or talk, and he knows how to regulate himself. So if these two kiddos can do it, we all can do it, but it takes a little effort, right? We need that double S. We need the effort. And I like to put the fun in it. I bring up little props. I have painted rocks. Tonight I'm teaching a class on creativity in the blocks that people might have that keep them from moving forward with their goals and their dreams. And whether or not they come out painting like Picasso it's irrelevant to me. For me, I'm looking at helping to remove roadblocks for people on their journey.
Yeah. So you say anyone can learn to emotionally regulate. How about people that have been diagnosed or told or believe that they're either on the autism spectrum or they've got ADHD, ADD, or one of those things that seems to be around all over the place today, whereas 20, 30 years ago, those terms didn't even exist?
So this might be controversial. I like to work with the parents before I work with any kids. And I've worked with a lot of children. And I found that when I worked with children and the parents were engaged in the teachings and they weren't modeling the tools, the kids are going to soak up what's happening at home. And when the parents or the caregivers are able to self-regulate and to calm down, especially kids that are nonverbal, they can't express like we're used to what's going on for them, but most of our communication is nonverbal anyway. And so
Yeah.
if mom is all stressed and saying, calm down, or okay, honey, let's calm down now. Let's just put our hand here, or finding what works for each kiddo. Each parent is going to have to work differently with each kiddo. You might have 3 kids and have 3 different strategies that work differently for each of them, that work in different situations. So it takes some effort to find a tool that works, first of all, for mom or dad or caregiver. I worked with one of my neighbors who watches children, and I was there for her. Now, I had a couple of kids that were really into the lesson, and I noticed that the caregiver was focused on some negative behavior going on with another kiddo. And so that negative behavior was getting reinforced, and they weren't modeling a calming technique. So then we worked privately to help her get her nervous system regulated. A lot of times we don't know when we're in a place of fight or flight until we're yelling at our coworker to shut the F up.
Yeah, you wonder where that came from.
Yeah. So many of these patterns are formed when we're so young, and we don't logically have the ability or reasoning cognitively to flip it around. And so I use the word, let's flip that script. In fact, I wrote a chapter in a collaborative book that came out in April, Shadow Alchemy, How to Turn Inner Darkness into Gold. And that book is amazing. It's got, I think, 21 other authors. Each author has 3 examples in the back of the chapter, like getting a book on, it's like $30,000 worth of therapy, really. So I talk about one, cancel, clear, delete. 25, maybe 30 years ago, I think it was a counselor or a therapist, said that if you recognize a thought that you don't like and you don't want more of it, say to yourself or out loud if you need to, cancel, clear, delete. She didn't give me the piece of replacing. So while I was good at noticing and kind of getting to a neutral place, oftentimes my thoughts would go back to another thought or that thought. I would stay in a loop. And I want to say it was probably about 10 years ago, and I don't recall, it might have been Wayne Dyer's work. I don't recall where it was that I added in the replace. Now, I could say, I don't want to date another alcoholic. And we've talked about this on our work that we did privately together. My brain hears, remember that, do I think about purple elephant? Don't think about purple elephant. Stop yelling. The brain hears yelling. The brain hears purple elephants. I don't want to date an alcoholic. The brain hears alcoholic. So I'm flipping it to looking to date someone who celebrates sobriety. My brain hears that, and I'll start to magnetize that into my life.
It's funny you should say that. When I review people's dating profiles, what I find on a lot of single mums' profiles are things that say something like, I don't want to date an alcoholic, or if you're only after one thing, don't bother, and all these things, or if you're not willing to date somebody with small kids, don't bother, or I won't date with somebody with kids. And it's like, well, that's okay, I get your point, but you're focusing on what you don't want, and that's the message you puts out to the universe, and that's what keeps coming back.
Right, because the universe probably doesn't hear don't.
Nope.
At least our brain doesn't hear the negative, the negation. I don't want another this in my life. And guess what? You're going to get another that. That's why we're putting our energy, and thoughts are energy. We are energetic beings. Our minds, our brains are these, they can be like we've had a lot of lightning storms out here in North Dakota. Last week, I had to leave work a couple of times. I work in a gas processing plant. So you don't want to be around lightning with propane, right? That's not a safe place to be. I could say it's a dangerous place to be. It's not a safe place to be. See how I flip those? Like in my head, I just flip. I work in a safe place. And lightning strikes. So when we have our mind that's going, like this thunderstorm inside, and maybe it even becomes a tornado where our thoughts become circular and we're in the same loop, and we just aren't aware of how to get out of that loop. This is what I work with clients, is I teach them to notice that loop, that tornado type thought process or thunderstorm thought process, to get into your body, to sink into your breath, to get into that calm space. And when we're in that calm space, meditative space, that space where our body is able to start to relax on a cellular level, we might have a lightning bolt, zoom, an aha might come and say, it might be a good time for me to look for a different job. But we can't have these aha moments. It's It's easier to have aha moments when we can allow our body to be at a calm, more neutral space. I have a friend who says she's sick and tired of being exhausted. And guess what she is? She's sick, she's tired, and she's exhausted. And if I guide her to flip it, I need more rest. The brain hears rest. Even if it just means shutting her eyes for 10 minutes and letting all the visual stimulus that our brain is assessing, safe, not safe, safe, not safe. Oh, there's a monster in my dream. I had a dream about a monster last night. Not safe, not safe, not safe, all day long, thinking about the monster in the dream. Not safe, not safe, not safe. And we wonder why moms are going to the wine, and we wonder why moms, I work with women, so I'm sure there are guys that go to beer to try and quiet those voices.
Yeah.
Rather than kick them to the curb, rather than shift that patterning. And it's not as simple as cancel, clear, delete, replace, but that's a first step to noticing. And that's what my friends and I are doing in this 21-day challenge. I've only made it to day 2 once now. I've been complaining. I started July 1st. The first day was when that co-lister told me to shut the F up. And I'm like, well, this was a good start to the challenge. 15 minutes into being around people, and I'm going to start complaining once I get out of their sight. But I noticed my patterns, and I flipped it to say, wow, she's probably having a really bad day, and she's probably not feeling very good about herself. And it's no reflection on me. As I assessed and looked at, there wasn't anything that I did that I could change my behavior. So looking at other people's mirrors, if there's something in someone that irritates us, is that something inside of me that I can soften? Right.
Yeah, it goes back to that old analogy that when you point the finger at somebody else, you've still got 3 fingers pointing back at yourself.
1000%, Alan, 1000%. That's how I knew that I had issues with anger, actually. That I was yelling at my ex-boyfriend, who was a drinker, and I was, rah, 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 and I'm like, wow, look at your hand. Rah, 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 you need to drink some water. You're dehydrated. Rah, rah, looks like an old lady's hand. Oh my gosh, it's my mom's hand. And my mom and I had very volatile verbal communication as a teenager. Once you're aware, you can't be unaware. You could put your head in the sand and drink a bottle of wine and try and pretend like you're not the one with the anger issue. And about 6 months later, I left that relationship and have been making friends with my anger ever since and embracing the tears. My mother said one time, you're always either mad or sad. And I realized, no, I value all the emotions in between, mad and sad, because I get to feel they're indicators to, hey, do I need to move away from this situation? Is there anything I can change? What's going on with my thoughts that caused me to be so mad? Not the other person. I was pointing my finger at him, but it was me that was making me be mad. Mad at myself for staying, whatever thought process was going on.
Definitely. You mentioned therapy earlier, which was it?
Rapid resolution therapy.
Alrighty. And what is that?
Well, I've been a student of rapid resolution therapy for a while now, and the pieces I'm taking from it, I'm weaving into a couple of other modalities that are more natural for me to use. Rapid resolution therapy, what I've learned from that and through experience is really the mind is causing, the thoughts are causing what's going on in our body. And what's going on in our body is causing us to react or behave a certain way, and then that brings situations into our life. There's a lot of neuro-linguistic programming in that modality, and I have been weaving them together with emotional freedom technique, the gentle tapping, rubbing, or applying pressure at meridian endpoints on the face mostly, like that K27 point. That's a powerful point. Recently, I just became certified since the first time we had this conversation in level 1 QRIT, which is quantum regression integrative therapy. And it's really powerful. So I'm weaving these pieces together that I learned from my emotional freedom technique training. I'm weaving in pieces I learned from healing touch. I'm weaving in pieces from rapid resolution therapy. And I'm putting together my own unique way to share QRIT, which you show up. I get you in a calm state. We're both calm together. We listen to the body. We find out maybe why the client is showing up in the first place. They might have an agenda, or they might not know why they're showing up. They're just tired of being tired. And so when we listen to the body, A lot of times we lean away from the body messages. My first session that was a breakthrough for me, I'd been having sciatic, which is, let's just call it a pain in the butt. And I had made the connection that it was around a relationship that was kind of being, that I'm going to say that person was being a pain in the butt back when I was blaming other people for things. And just 2 weeks ago, that session was powerful. I was able to have like a soul level conversation with this person and got to see from their perspective, using the visualization, using your imagination, your mind. And what's so beautiful about our brilliant minds, our brains, really, our brains don't know if we are thinking about yesterday, focused on tomorrow. Our brain just knows now. Now our mind backwards and forwards. But when we can bring our mind to the present, to be in alignment with our body and every cell in our body, even the cell in your little pinky is only knowing right. The brain only knows right now. My brain just heard a vehicle outside. If it would have backfired, my brain would have had to assess, is it gunfire? Do I duck? Or is it a car backfiring? So these things are happening so quickly, like that storm I talked about in the brain. When we calm our mind from the thinking, then we can get to that place where we're able to notice what action to take or not. When we're able to notice a pattern. And then do we want to stay with that pattern? Or do we want to shift it? Let's put the fun in shift.
To me, the mind in some ways is a little bit like the ocean. When I go scuba diving, if it's a calm, peaceful, calm day, no one else has dived on that site at all that day. So when you go down, you get fantastic visibility. And then if you go back to the same site, the water's a bit choppy and you're doing the third dive of the day, there's other divers been down, kicking the silt around all over the place. You can see a heck of a lot less because all those dirt particles and sand particles are in the water.
Yeah, and it's stirred up. There's a analogy where you put dirt in a jar with water, and when you shake it up, it eventually will settle. And then you'll see the mud on the bottom and the clear water on top. And it'd be great if we could allow ourselves more time to settle. And I think the reason that we aren't doing that collectively is that many people are afraid that when we get down on the deep, dark, murky stuff, it might be really scary. But we've made it alive so far. I've been through some pretty traumatic, deep, dark Dateline 2020 true crime stories, scary. It's a miracle that I wasn't strangulated and that I still have my voice. My brain and body, if I hadn't done some shadow work around traumatic events in my life, would never be on this podcast with you. I wouldn't have opened up to use my voice. I probably would have gotten into another relationship with someone who medicated with alcohol. I probably would have been in a codependent relationship because I hadn't done my work. Because for a while, I didn't know how to dive into those depths. I mean, I stayed in there. It seemed like I was down at the bottom of the ocean for a long time. I didn't know how to get to the top to surface and get air. So I love that analogy of the ocean. I'll probably start to play with it a little bit because even when the ocean seems to be calm and there's no waves at all, there's still undercurrent. There's still way deep down. It's so dark, way deep down, we don't even know what's down there. I mean, it is scary to think about going down the dark bottom of the oceans, right? There's some pretty monstrous type creatures down there. But the cool news is, and they're not going to come to land and get us. But our brain doesn't know that the dark monsters that were in our childhood or the darkness that feels like it's still here now isn't like an ocean monster. And so those are the kinds of women I love to work with because I've been to the bottom of the ocean and now I'm surfing on the wave.
I'm thinking back to when my kids were young and our kids were both scared of the dark and had a conversation with them about why that was. And initially they said, because there's monsters out there. Really? Well, where do they come from? Oh, well, Mummy says, and part of me is going off, here we go, so keep digging and sort of learning a little bit more. So I think it was probably a period of about 12 months. Most nights I had them, we'd go outside with a torch and just show them that everything is the same that night as it was in the daytime. And for that whole period, their mum's still telling them that there's monsters in there and keep out of the kitchen because there's a dog in there that's going to eat you. So, like, part of me is thinking, what kind of parent says this stuff to their kids? But I thought, put that to one side for now. Just focus on the kids. And something I thought about recently, I was like, women grow up fearful of men. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, where's this come from? And thinking, if they grow up with, instead of being told that there's monsters out in the dark that are going to eat them, they hear that men are monsters, they're predators, and all this other stuff where most men are not. And you think, well, how much of these stories are just from things that girls and women have heard when they were younger, that's been passed down from generation to generation from way back when we lived in caves?
Well, like modern day, I was gonna say fairy tales, modern day Hansel and Gretel type stories that get passed down. And there have been women who have been harmed by men. And I'm going to say that those men were harmed by either other women or men when they were younger. Very few people hurt other people if they weren't hurt themselves. And those messages, that those stories, so our subconscious loves stories. And if the stories we're telling and the subconscious doesn't know, the conscious mind doesn't even really know, the subconscious is filing it away and saying, oh yeah, be aware of this, be afraid of the dark. I love how you took your kids out with the torch and said it's the same in the daytime as it is in the nighttime. And so those stories and those images that you're sharing with the kids, those experiential times when they're going out in the dark with you, feeling safe because dad's there, will shape and shift how they become adults and parents themselves. They'll start to realize when their brain becomes more logical, mom's probably afraid of the dark, of her dark, the dark, her dark. Yeah, powerful. Way to go, Dad. High five.
So, the alchemy book that you took part in recently, that wasn't your first book, was it?
No, it wasn't. No, in fact, the first book I was involved with, I thought I was going to finish it to fruition. Yupa Women, Gut, Grit, and Gray, Stories Around the Campfire by Kim Key. And we gathered stories around the bonfire and I typed them all up. And the cover is literally taped and cut with scissors and Scotch tape. And then the graphic designer did some amazing things with it. That author wasn't able to have a conversation with me, a direct, difficult conversation. So we parted ways before the book. You know, I got to hear all the stories. I got to write all the stories in the editing process and putting it together. And so that book took me a while to buy that book. I was still my thoughts were causing hurt and pain in my life and a little envy and jealousy that, you know, I wasn't a celebrated author yet. I didn't know at the time. And so then Entangled No More came along. Katie Carey has a third Soulful Bailey Publishing, and Entangled No More, Women Who Broke Free from Toxic Relationships, Building Their Own Empires. That second part, building their own empires, I thought, that's not me. At the time, when this book opportunity came to me, I literally was living in a small little outbuilding on a friend's farm. It was after my business closed from COVID, and it was still during the pandemic, and I didn't have a whole lot of financial abundance at the time. I had a lot of debt at the time. And I literally was peeing in a 5-gallon bucket in the middle of the night, so I didn't have to walk to the farmhouse to use I didn't have running water in the place. So I'm thinking, empire? I don't have much of an empire. Geez, oh Pete. But I knew about breaking free from toxic relationship because this was the one, me, with a toxic relationship that I broke free from. So since that book has come out, it came out, okay, so I was writing it, and then I moved to North Dakota, and I started working in a gas station overnight as a 55-year-old young woman. And then I landed a job where I'm now working in the propane gas industry, and the book came out. And then I've also been able to be involved with Shallow Alchemy. So 2 different collaborative books. And what I'm really excited is my friend who I met through Entangled No More, Jessica Louise Beal. She introduced me to the Shadow Alchemy opportunity, and she's starting her own publishing company. So my first solo book that I'm working on this winter, The Adventures of Mr. Lucky Cattail, The Face of Ugly. And UGLY stands for Unique, Gifted, Lovable, You. And The Adventures of Mr. Lucky Cattails are ageless allegories that they'll be easy readers, so that the kids who are learning how to read are engaging with the reader. And in the back of the story, I'll have questions for contemplative depth to dive down a little deeper. Some people will just want to stay at the surface in their boat and they won't want to dive any deeper for the concepts, but I'll be talking about forgiveness. And the little ones might not quite the topics, but I'll do a story on forgiveness and we'll use the word sorry when we're apologizing, not for getting in the way of someone at the grocery store. Just notice how many times you hear the word sorry now when you're shopping.
Yeah.
People, instead of excuse me, people say sorry all the time. So those are words that I've shifted and flipped and shoulds. I should have left sooner, could have chosen to leave sooner. So yeah, I'm really excited about those books to come out. So 2025, that's my goal for becoming a published author on my own. But these collaborative projects have been phenomenal for helping me to step more into that unique McPeak role, or helping me to share more of my story so that other women primarily, but men too, have said, wow, I really resonate with your story, and it gives me courage to think about sharing part of my story with someone I trust.
So when's your autobiography coming out?
Well, let me get through these. I've got 64 of these in mind. I'm actually going to, human design, right? Human design. So
I do.
I'm going to keep this cover. I'm going to keep the cover on this, the lid on this cover of these ideas. But I have a framework. I could do 64 of these. So let's just say I'm turning 58 in December, and that's my life's work, which is all about moving from dissatisfaction through the gift of vitality, which I embrace fully. I love feeling alive and playful, and to get to bliss. So let's just say I'll start working on that autobiography when I'm 60, maybe sooner. But so in 2026, let's do a podcast, and I'll either say, I haven't even started it, Alan, now it's time to put pencil to paper, or hey, it's in the works, or look at this, maybe it'll be in my hand.
So if you're listening to this and it happens to be that year, then reach out to Kristine and ask her where you can buy her book.
Thank you. Now it's out there. Oh my goodness.
You're most welcome.
Thanks.
So speaking of which, if anyone's listening to this and they would like to reach out to you or read some of your books or just learn a little more, what's the easiest way for them to find you?
Well, I'll go ahead and send you an email link that you can put for the podcast, but laughinggirl@gmail.com. If you're on the social media, Facebook, who knows how long that'll be around. It's been around for a while, but you can find me, Kristine. I have a couple of groups that are open to, these are Facebook groups. One of them's open to guys and girls, men and women, healthy living from afar. And then I have a private container. So I'd have men and women join that group, and then I offer a private container for ladies, Play in the Quantum with Kristine. And I have, I like to paint rocks. So for those of you who can see this was a rock that a little girl painted of in that time when I was still in the relationship where I was pointing my finger at someone else. And I thought, wow, I really would like to flip it. And this is how I'd like to be seen, more vibrant with a smile on my face, less sad and meek. And so people can show up. Once a month, I do an art class. So really finding me right now on social media of Facebook. I'll also send you my pen site link that you can post for the podcast. So that's a really great place to come and get all the past recordings from the workshop, the Emotional Intelligence 101 series. So far, I have taught two workshops, Navigating Unresolved Anger. Last month, I taught Quieting the Inner Critic. And in August, I don't know when this is airing, but August, I am starting Play Matters, no matter what your age. And then I'll repeat those 3 classes. And in January of 2025, I'm hosting a month-long container where I will teach many of the tools that you can take home with you, the K27 point. I'll teach a breath, my favorite breath. In fact, we'll do that right now if we have another moment or two. This is a really fun breath. If you can imagine your favorite smell, it might be a flower, it might be pumpkin pie. Just imagine your favorite smell, let your brain do the work, and breathe in through your nose like you're smelling your favorite smell. And breathe out through your mouth like you're blowing at a candle, but you're just flickering the candle. So you're not blowing forcefully at it. So we breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. So I'll share, the first week will be many tools And then the second week will be on navigating unresolved anger and other emotions that come up. The third week will be on quieting the inner critic, which is really coming out in my friends when we're looking at the 21-day challenge. So that's something else that I'm also hosting. And then the last week will be play matters. Because when we can put the F in effort and the F in fun and the F in shift, it just makes transformation easier. Actually, we learn more quickly when we're able to be playful. There are studies out there that show that play is phenomenal for kiddos when they're learning new skills.
That's how I'll learn.
Now, we're learning new skills. Did you learn how to drive the first day you got behind a car? No, we practiced. Did we learn how to walk the first day we got up from crawling? No, we fall down. There's that F again. We fall down, we shift, we get back up. And when we can put play in it as an adult, when we're learning new skills, like calming our mind, calming our nervous system, those are new skills. Most people don't go from one day to the next and wake up and all of a sudden they know how to play a piano like Mozart. They practice at that skill. So practicing at these skills, sometimes I didn't want to play piano. I didn't want to practice. So that's why I didn't ever piano playing. I wanted to be outside playing. So I perfected playing as a kid. And now here I am encouraging the inner child in you to come out and play. Exactly. To come out and play. You got it.
Yeah, it's crazy. You look at the kids' journey through the education system when they're in nursery school, which would be up till about 5. I'm not sure what you call it over there. But it's all about fun. It's all about play. And then as they progress through the whole school system, there's less play, there's less fun, and there's more sit down and remember this stuff, and then you'll be deemed to whether you're good enough or not good enough by how much of this stuff you can actually remember. I'm not a fan of the school system.
Well, like I said, I'm grateful that I didn't land a job in the school system. The thing about our memory too, Alan, is that when we are remembering something, we are reconstructing it. So all we're doing in that sense is getting people to be really good rememberers. And when people are remembering that there's monsters in the closet in the dark, the brain and the cells in our body don't know that that was last night or last year or last decade, and now we're afraid. And so we're making really good.
Doesn't know if it's on a movie or not.
Exactly. That's why I really limit what it is that I ingest with my, not just what I eat, but what I ingest with my eyes and what I listen to for music. If I hear lyrics that have any violence to it, I'm like, oh, I never heard that song this way before. It's no longer a favorite song.
So as we're coming up towards the end of this time slot, final question, I guess, unless it triggers off a bunch of others, which is always a possibility. And I don't prime anyone for this question, but because we've already attempted to record this once and have the technology issues, you know what's coming. So
if I remember.
I don't know if you remember.
I don't. I will when you ask me.
So the question is, as this podcast is called Relationship Revolutions, what is one thing from your perspective that would bring a revolution or evolution to the world of dating and relationships?
Oh my goodness. I don't remember how I answered in May, and that's okay. But today I would say be yourself. Be unapologetically yourself. Now that doesn't mean go out and be a jerk. If you're a jerk, work on yourself and then come to the dating table. Be yourself, because the energy we put out there, the words that we use, the words that we type, like you talked about the single moms who were saying what they didn't want, broadcast what you are willing to provide and broadcast what you are deserving of receiving, and focus on that rather than what you do not want. You'll get more of that. So yeah, that would be my revolutionary relationship advice. Be yourself, broadcast what you are choosing to bring and what you're choosing to receive in a relationship. And by the way, I am still single, so if anyone is interested in my kind of energy, let's see what you bring to the table.
And bear in mind, if you're going to apply for that, you will at least need a passport.
Yes, you will need a passport, and you will need to have curiosity as a value, lifelong learning, and you need to be able to stay on your toes, because this woman here it's never the same day twice for me. Playful, in the best of ways.
Absolutely. Most definitely. And I think just to expand on the point about being yourself, before you can really be yourself, you've got to take that time to get to know yourself, and not just what mum and dad or school teachers or bosses have said that you are over the years. Really take that time to go inside and sort of let go of the stuff that isn't really you, and just really embrace the stuff that is. Even if in the past somebody said it's not lovable or not wanted, because they're probably just not your people, not your tribe.
Yeah.
Find,
And they're probably speaking from their perspective. They're not feeling
yeah,
lovable. And so taking that courage to dive down, be a scuba diver, be a curious scuba diver, and find tools, find a practitioner, find someone who can support you in that diving.
yeah. So why you always dive with a dive buddy or a dive
Yeah.
master or somebody
Yeah.
that knows what they're doing, and if you have an issue, you're not alone.
Yeah, and when we learn how to drive in driver's ed, we have someone in the car with us that has a brake, like they can slam on the brake if you're getting ready to run through a red light, so that's how I love to help people navigate, the emotional road trip is let me ride shotgun with you and let me have that brake if we need it, and I'll guide you to looking forward rather than being stuck in the rearview mirror and looking in the past. Let's move forward in a way that's fun and playful. Watch my Facebook page. In 6 weeks, I'm going on an epic road trip, 3,000 some miles, and I'm going to have fun content.
Sounds like a fun adventure, and I'll have to keep my eyes for it. Well, Kristine, thank you for coming back again for round 2, and I'll look forward to seeing you again in your own space very, very soon.
Thank you. Miigwech, Mercy, Danka, and all the other ways. Kap kun ka, I learned how to say in Thai last weekend. So I appreciate the opportunity. And it's always a pleasure having conversation with you, Alan. I appreciate the work you're doing.
Likewise.
Thank you for listening. And if you haven't already, please leave me a review on your preferred podcast platform. Click the like button and also subscribe so that you get the new episode notifications. I'm curious, what did you take away from this episode? Please share your takeaways with me. Send me an email to relationship-revolutions@theloveengineer.rocks.